15 minutes ago, Piero Barone finally revealed his married life with his partner. The news spread like wildfire across the world, fans gasped, hearts raced, and social media couldn't stop buzzing. But behind the breaking headlines and flashing cameras was a story far more personal, far more real, and far more emotional than anyone could have imagined. Tonight, we take you behind that revelation to the man whose voice carried the soul of Il Volo, and whose heart, for the first time, spoke louder than any note he ever sang. It all began quietly, away from the spotlight. Piero had always been known as the serious one, the one who carried the discipline, the charm, the elegance of a man beyond his years. His performances were flawless, his smile calm, his voice unshakable. But deep inside, there was a side of Piero the world never saw, the man who longed for love, not written by lyrics, but by real moments, quiet dinners, and laughter shared without the glare of fame. For years, he had guarded that part of his life carefully, not out of pride, but out of protection. Because sometimes, when the world watches you so closely, you learn to protect what matters most. But 15 minutes ago, that all changed. Sitting in front of a small audience during a private interview in Rome, Piero leaned forward, his voice soft but steady, and said words that would silence the room. "Yes, I'm married, and I've been waiting for the right time to share it." The crowd froze. Even the interviewer seemed stunned for a moment. Married? The world had speculated for years, but no one expected him to confirm it so openly, so gently. Piero smiled, the kind of smile that comes not from surprise or showmanship, but from peace. "She's my best friend," he continued. "She's the reason I sing with more emotion now. When I'm on stage, every note is for her." He paused, his eyes glistening slightly. The room remained silent. It wasn't just an announcement. It was a confession of love, one that came not from the lips of a celebrity, but from the heart of a man who had finally found his forever. The fans watching online were overwhelmed. Comments flooded the stream. "Piero, we're so happy for you. You deserve love and peace. We can feel it in your voice every time you sing." It was as if the entire Il Volo family spread across countries and generations celebrated with him in that single moment. And yet, for Piero, it wasn't about the applause. It was about truth, about finally letting the world see that beneath the suits, the spotlights, and the perfection, there lived a man with simple dreams to love and to be loved back. Later that evening, Gianluca and Ignazio joined him for a quiet dinner, away from cameras, just three brothers bound by music and time. They raised their glasses, laughter filling the room. Gianluca teased, "So finally, you said it out loud, huh?" Ignazio added, "Took you long enough, man." And Piero just smiled. "I didn't want to hide it anymore," he said. "Love shouldn't be a secret. It should be something that makes you sing even louder." As they reminisced about their journey, the endless flights, the sold-out arenas, the moments when fame felt heavy, Piero's words lingered in the air. "I've realized something," he said softly. "We chase so much in life: success, recognition, perfection, but none of it matters if you can't come home to peace." The room fell quiet for a moment, because in that simple sentence, he had spoken what so many forget, that even for the stars who seem untouchable, love remains the most grounding force of all. Later that night, when fans replayed the clip of him saying, "Yes, I'm married," they noticed something in his eyes, a calm that had never been there before. It wasn't the face of a man burdened by secrets or weighed down by fame. It was the face of someone free. Someone who had finally chosen honesty over image. And that, perhaps, was what made it all so powerful. Across Italy, messages poured in from fans, journalists, and even fellow musicians, congratulating him and praising his courage to share his truth in a world where privacy often feels impossible. But Piero wasn't chasing headlines, he was simply sharing his heart. In his words, "If I've learned anything from all these years, it's that music and love are the same. They only mean something when they're shared." He spoke about how his partner had been with him quietly, away from the fame, supporting him during the hard nights when tours felt endless and the spotlight felt too bright. "She never asked for fame," he said. "She just wanted me to be myself." And when someone loves you for the man you are, not for the stage, not for the lights, that's when you know it's real. And as he said those words, something beautiful happened. It wasn't just an interview anymore, it was a love story unfolding in real time. Fans didn't just see Piero Barone. The tenor from Il Volo, they saw Piero, the man who still believed in love, family, and truth. And maybe that's why it touched so many hearts. Because in a world filled with noise, he chose to speak softly and everyone listened. By the time the video ended, tears had filled more eyes than anyone expected. Not because of sadness, but because of beauty. The beauty of honesty, vulnerability, and a love that wasn't about luxury or fame, but about companionship and trust. It reminded everyone watching that the people they admire most, those who stand beneath the lights, are still human, still searching for the same peace we all seek. And as Piero stood to leave the studio, one last question echoed from the audience. "What's the secret to your love?" He smiled, paused, and said softly, "Patience, respect, and music." Because when you love someone, every song becomes about them. The audience erupted in applause, not the wild cheers of a concert, but the heartfelt kind that comes from witnessing something genuine. That night, fans didn't just fall in love with his voice again, they fell in love with his truth. Piero Barone reminded the world that love doesn't have to be loud to be real. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's shared only when the heart is ready. And tonight, 15 minutes ago, he showed us that the most powerful stories aren't sung on stage, they're lived. In the days following his heartfelt revelation, the world could not stop talking about Piero Barone. News outlets across Italy and beyond replayed his confession over and over, that quiet, emotional moment when he admitted that love had found him and changed everything. But what the headlines couldn't capture was the depth of what had led to that moment, the long road of self-discovery, heartbreak, and courage it took for him to finally open his heart to the world. Because for Piero, love was never just a headline. It was a story years in the making. It all began long before the fame, long before the spotlights. Piero was a small-town boy from Agrigento, raised in warmth, simplicity, and music. His grandfather had been the first to recognize his gift, guiding him through the earliest notes of his life, telling him, "Music will always protect you." But as the years went by, as Il Volo's fame exploded, that protection sometimes felt more like pressure. The world saw the perfection, but not the price. The long nights, the distance from home, the weight of constantly being seen but rarely known. And through it all, he carried one quiet wish: to find someone who loved him for who he was when the music stopped. He met her, as he once described in a private conversation, in the most ordinary way, no red carpet, No cameras, no spotlight. "It was just a normal day," he said softly. "She didn't recognize me right away, and maybe that's what made it beautiful." They spoke about books, about coffee, about little things that seemed to matter more than fame. And that night, when he returned home, for the first time in years, his heart was louder than his career. He had met someone who didn't see Piero Barone, the celebrity, but Piero, the man. Their relationship grew quietly, far from the noise of public life. There were no flashy posts, no public declarations, just two souls building something real. She would travel with him when she could, waiting backstage during concerts, smiling as he performed, knowing that behind every song, a piece of his heart belonged to her. And after every show, no matter how loud the applause was, Piero would always say the same thing when he saw her. "Did you hear that one note? That was for you." But being in love while living in the spotlight wasn't always easy. There were rumors, whispers, endless questions from the media. Some said he was engaged. Others claimed he was single. Piero never confirmed or denied. He protected her fiercely because he knew that the world could sometimes turn love into spectacle. But as time passed, he realized something: hiding love was no longer strength. It was fear, and love, true love, deserved light, not shadows. So when he finally said it publicly, "Yes, I'm married," it wasn't just an announcement, it was freedom. Freedom from years of silence, from pretending that his happiness needed to be hidden. That confession wasn't rehearsed, it came straight from his soul. You could see it in his eyes, the mix of relief, pride, and tenderness. He wasn't just talking to the audience, he was speaking to her, the woman who had stood beside him through every note, every tour, every moment of doubt. Later that week, he and his partner were spotted walking hand in hand through the narrow streets of Bologna, far from the flashing cameras of major events. Locals who recognized them didn't rush for pictures. They simply smiled, knowing they were witnessing something special. Two people who had chosen simplicity over spectacle. "He looked so peaceful," one witness said, "like a man who finally found home." If this story touched your soul, remember to subscribe to the channel for more real and emotional stories about the stars you love.